The vast chamber of the Zorn mothership hummed with a low rhythmic vibration that seemed to pulse through the metallic walls. Holographic displays flickered with intricate star charts, each pinpoint of light representing potential conquests in the expanding galactic map. Supreme Navigator Zeltak stood at the central command platform, his multi-jointed appendages moving with calculated precision as he reviewed the latest reconnaissance data. Earth appeared as a small, insignificant, blue marble against the infinite darkness of space. Initial scans had been almost dismissive in their brevity. A single planet, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star populated by a species barely capable of reaching its own moon. The Zorn Collective had conquered far more challenging worlds with minimal effort. This would be nothing more than a routine expansion, another footnote in their millennia-long history of galactic dominance. Deep within the ship's advanced scanning systems, complex algorithms processed every detail of the human world. Population centers, technological infrastructure, military capabilities, all were reduced to cold mathematical probabilities. The preliminary report suggested a 98% likelihood of immediate surrender, only 2% chance of meaningful resistance. Zeltak's secondary neural cluster processed the data with clinical detachment. Humans were primitive by Zorn standards. Their communication networks were fragmented, their global political systems riddled with conflict and division. Technological disparities were so vast that the coming conquest seemed almost merciful. The Zorn viewed themselves as bringers of order, of collective efficiency. Humanity would be integrated, standardized, made productive. On the massive view screen, detailed images of Earth began to resolve. Major cities came into focus, sprawling metropolises of concrete and glass, transportation networks that looked like intricate neural pathways, massive agricultural zones, and industrial complexes. The scanning systems began cataloging resources, rare minerals, diverse ecosystems, potential workforce. The planet was a treasure trove waiting to be claimed. The invasion fleet assembled with mechanical precision. Thousands of ships formed perfect geometric patterns, their surfaces shifting with adaptive camouflage technologies that could render them invisible to primitive detection systems. Each vessel represented centuries of technological advancement, weapons capable of reducing entire continents to molten glass in moments. Command protocols were transmitted across the fleet. The plan was elegantly simple. Primary population centers would be targeted simultaneously. Major governmental structures, military installations, communication networks, all would be neutralized in the first wave. Resistance was mathematically improbable. Submission was inevitable. What the Zorn could not calculate were the intangible elements of human nature. They saw numbers, probabilities, resources. They could not comprehend spirit, creativity, or the extraordinary potential that lay dormant within the human species. The first wave of ships began their descent. Aboard the lead vessel, tactical displays showed projected impact zones. New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, São Paulo. Each city marked with cold precision, each marked for immediate neutralization. The Zorn believed they were bringing order to chaos, efficiency to a primitive world. They did not understand that they were about to wake a sleeping giant. In military bunkers, research facilities, and command centers across the globe, humanity's first defenders were already moving. Scientists who had been working on theoretical defense systems suddenly found themselves thrust into a very real conflict. Military strategists who had planned for countless hypothetical scenarios now faced their ultimate test. The invasion began with a series of massive energy discharges that lit up the sky. Incredible beams of destructive potential carved through atmosphere and infrastructure. Cities erupted in cascading explosions. Communication networks fragmented. Governments were thrown into immediate crisis. But something extraordinary was happening that the Zorn could not predict. Instead of complete collapse, humanity was beginning to respond. Not with panic, not with total surrender, but with defiance. The first wave of the invasion would be remembered not as a moment of defeat, but as the moment humanity truly understood its potential. The moment when a scattered, divided species would begin to unite. The moment everything would change. The world had changed in an instant. Where once there were bustling cities, now only smoking ruins remained. Communication networks collapsed, governments scrambled, and hope seemed like a distant memory. But beneath the chaos, something remarkable was taking shape. In a reinforced underground research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her cracked glasses and stared intently at a wall of damaged monitors. Around her, a diverse team of scientists, engineers, and military experts worked with frantic precision. The facility had been a top-secret research center long before the invasion, designed to protect humanity's most critical minds and resources. "We're not dealing with a conventional enemy," Dr. Rodriguez announced, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of whirring computers and urgent conversations. Her specialty in quantum physics and adaptive systems made her uniquely qualified to understand the alien threat. Scattered across the room were fragments of recovered alien technology, twisted metal, incomprehensible circuitry, remnants of destroyed invasion ships. Halfway across the world, in a makeshift command center hidden within the vast underground tunnel systems of the Chinese countryside, Commander Sarah Chen studied a holographic map of global invasion zones. Her team represented an unprecedented coalition: military strategists, communication experts, and resistance leaders from every continent. The old boundaries of nation and ideology had dissolved in the face of a threat that cared nothing for human divisions. "We need a global network," Chen told her team. "Not just military. Every single person with a skill that can help us survive becomes part of our defense." Her words carried the weight of both a military commander and a strategist who understood that survival would require more than just weapons. In universities, research centers, and improvised communication hubs, humanity began to reorganize. Theoretical physicists worked alongside mechanical engineers. Computer programmers collaborated with medical researchers. Farmers shared survival strategies with urban planners. The invasion had done what decades of diplomacy could not. It had unified humanity into a single, focused organism. Dr. Rodriguez's team made a critical discovery. The alien technology, for all its apparent superiority, had fundamental vulnerabilities. Their quantum communication networks, while advanced, relied on a precise mathematical harmony that could be disrupted. It was like finding a single thread that could unravel an entire tapestry. "They think in absolutes," Rodriguez explained to her team. "We think in possibilities." It was a crucial difference. The Zorn saw the world through predictive algorithms and mathematical certainties. Humans saw potential, saw ways around problems that didn't yet exist. Communication became humanity's first true weapon. Survivors in different parts of the world began sharing information through whatever means possible. Ham radio operators, satellite phone networks, even messenger systems, using drones and motorcycles. Where traditional infrastructure had failed, human creativity filled the gap. Commander Chen's Global Defense Initiative began taking shape. They couldn't match the aliens in technology, but they could outmaneuver them in strategy. Small, mobile, resistance groups were established. Each group was autonomous, capable of operating independently, yet connected through a decentralized communication network that the aliens couldn't easily track or destroy. In refugee camps and makeshift shelters, a new kind of preparation was happening. People who had never considered themselves fighters were learning survival skills. Former office workers became communications specialists. Teachers organized community defense networks. Farmers developed innovative ways to protect food supplies and grow crops in challenging conditions. The first true human counterattack was nothing like the Zorn would have predicted. It wasn't a massive military response. Instead, it was a series of small, precisely targeted interventions. A communication network disrupted, a supply line interrupted, a piece of alien technology carefully studied, and its weaknesses mapped. "Doctor." Rodriguez looked up from her workstation, a slight smile crossing her face. "They think they've won," she said quietly. "They have no idea what's coming." The invasion had revealed humanity's greatest strength. Not technology, not military might, but adaptability. The ability to learn, to change, to find solutions where none seemed to exist. The Zorn had come expecting a quick conquest. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species learning to fight back. The research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains had transformed. What was once a sterile laboratory now resembled a war room crossed with a high-tech workshop. Salvaged alien technology lay scattered across workbenches, torn apart and examined. With a mixture of scientific precision and desperate innovation, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers tracing intricate quantum wave patterns that danced like living light. Weeks of continuous research had revealed something extraordinary about the alien communication network, a fundamental vulnerability that no one had anticipated. "It's not just a technology," she explained to her exhausted team. "It's a language, a mathematical language that assumes absolute predictability." Her eyes gleamed with the excitement of scientific discovery. Around her, specialists from diverse fields, quantum physicists, computer engineers, communications experts, worked in a state of collaborative intensity rarely seen in human history. The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. A communication specialist noticed patterns in the alien signal transmission that reminded her of complex linguistic structures. A quantum physicist recognized mathematical symmetries that suggested both strength and critical weakness. A computer engineer found similarities to encryption methods used in early quantum computing research. Their target was the Zorn's quantum communication network, the nervous system that allowed their vast fleet to operate with near-perfect coordination. It was more than just a communication system. It was the aliens' primary method of strategic planning, resource allocation, and fleet coordination. Prototype devices began to take shape. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, they were sophisticated quantum disruption modules, designed to introduce controlled chaos into the alien communication matrix. The goal wasn't to destroy, but to confuse, to introduce unpredictability into a system that relied entirely on predictive algorithms. Outside the facility, the world continued to burn. Alien ships maintained their occupation of major cities, believing their victory was complete. They could not comprehend the work happening in hidden facilities around the globe, the human capacity to learn, to adapt, to find solutions in the most impossible circumstances. The first test came unexpectedly. A refugee camp in the Brazilian rainforest was about to be eliminated by a Zorn assault group. The research team had prepared their prototype quantum disruption device, but no one was certain it would work. Commander Sarah Chen watched the live satellite feed, her hand hovering over the communication link. "Activation sequence initiated," Dr. Rodriguez called out. The device looked almost laughably simple, a collection of modified quantum processors, custom-built communication arrays, and components salvaged from destroyed alien technology. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien ships began to flicker. Their perfectly synchronized movement became erratic. Communication signals scattered like light through a prism. Weapon systems went offline. Navigation became impossible. The assault group, once a model of military precision, dissolved into chaos. The refugee camp was saved. But more importantly, humanity had just proven something critical. They could fight back. The quantum disruption device represented more than a technological breakthrough. It was a statement of human potential. Where the Zorn saw only mathematical certainties, humans saw possibilities. Where aliens relied on perfect systems, humans thrived on adaptability. Dr. Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. The device was a proof of concept, a first step. Her team would need to refine it, create variations, develop strategies to exploit the newfound vulnerability. But for the first time since the invasion began, there was real hope. "We're not just surviving," she told her team as they celebrated their breakthrough. "We're learning, we're adapting, and we're going to show them what humanity can do." The quantum disruption device represented humanity's first true weapon against the invasion. Not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of understanding, a tool that transformed the very nature of conflict. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They were about to learn that nothing about humanity was simple. The conference hall beneath the Swiss Alps was unlike any diplomatic meeting in human history. Representatives from every corner of the globe sat shoulder to shoulder, the traditional barriers of language, culture, and national identity dissolved by a threat greater than any human conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the room, her presentation showing the quantum disruption technology that had given humanity its first real hope. To her left, Commander Sarah Chen represented the global defense strategy. To her right, a panel of leaders from Africa, Asia, South America, and Europe listened with unprecedented unity. "We are no longer separate nations," began United Nations Secretary-General Amara Diallo, her voice resonating with determination. "We are a single species fighting for survival." The words echoed the fundamental transformation happening across the world. Centuries of division were being rewritten in weeks of shared struggle. Universities had become innovation centers. Every academic discipline was now focused on a single goal: understanding and defeating the alien invasion. Physicists worked alongside biologists. Computer engineers collaborated with agricultural specialists. Medical researchers developed new technologies for survival and resistance. In the agricultural regions of the American Midwest, farmers were doing more than growing food. They were developing sustainable agricultural systems that could survive under the constant threat of alien attacks. Hydroponics facilities were converted into underground growing centers. Communication networks allowed for real-time sharing of survival techniques. Military academies transformed overnight. Traditional warfare strategies became obsolete. The new training focused on adaptability, innovation, and unconventional problem-solving. Soldiers were no longer just fighters. They were strategic thinkers, scientists, and community leaders. Global resource allocation became a precision operation. Rare materials needed for quantum technologies were carefully mapped and distributed. Manufacturing centers around the world were retooled to produce critical components. What was once a competitive global economy became a unified production system. "We're building something entirely new," Dr. Rodriguez explained to the assembled leaders. "Not just a defense strategy, an entirely new way of thinking about human potential." The quantum disruption technology was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of human collaborative intelligence. Communication networks became humanity's circulatory system. Satellite systems, underground communication relays, and improvised signal transmission methods created a global nervous system. Information about alien movements, survival strategies, and technological breakthroughs could be shared instantaneously. In refugee centers around the world, a new social structure was emerging. People were no longer defined by their previous occupations or national identities. A former corporate executive might be managing food distribution. A retired teacher could be training communication specialists. A young programmer might be developing critical defensive technologies. The Global Defense Initiative became more than a military organization. It was a comprehensive human survival network. Every skill became valuable. Every person had a role to play. The invasion had stripped away the artificial barriers that had previously divided humanity. Commander Chen presented the global defense strategy. It was unlike any military plan in human history. Decentralized, adaptive, designed to turn human creativity into a weapon more powerful than any technology. Small independent resistance groups could operate autonomously while remaining connected through a complex communication network. "The aliens believe they understand us," Chen told the assembly, "but they have no concept of human potential. Our strength is not in our individual capabilities, but in our ability to work together." The meeting concluded with a unanimous decision. Every resource, every technology, every human skill would be focused on a single objective: survival, and, more than survival, resistance. Humanity would not just fight back. They would transform the very nature of the conflict. As the representatives left the conference hall, a new sense of purpose filled the air. The invasion had done what centuries of diplomacy could not. It had united humanity into a single, focused organism. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They were about to discover that humanity was anything but simple. The Zorn leadership convened in their primary strategic chamber, a massive holographic space that pulsed with mathematical precision. Supreme Navigator Zeltak studied the latest battle reports with growing confusion. Human resistance defied every predictive model in their advanced strategic databases. Where the Zorn expected linear responses, humans introduced chaos. Where alien algorithms anticipated predictable movement, human forces materialized and disappeared, like phantoms. It was warfare unlike anything in the Zorn's millennia-long history of galactic conquests. Commander Sarah Chen had transformed military strategy into an art of psychological warfare. Her teams developed tactics that exploited the fundamental differences between human and Zorn thinking. They understood that the alien communication network relied on absolute predictability, and they weaponized unpredictability. Decoy operations became a critical strategy. Small human teams would create elaborate false signal networks, drawing alien forces into elaborate traps. Communication patterns were deliberately randomized, introduced with mathematical complexity that confused the alien strategic systems. What seemed like random noise to the Zorn was actually a carefully constructed communication method. In the mountains of Peru, a resistance group led by Maria Gonzalez demonstrated this approach perfectly. Using a combination of low-tech radio, equipment, quantum signal disruptors, and carefully planned misinformation, they managed to redirect an entire alien assault squadron. The Zorn ships chased phantom signals across hundreds of kilometers, exhausting their resources on a completely fabricated threat. Psychological warfare became a critical weapon. The human resistance understood something the Zorn could not comprehend. That warfare was not just about physical combat, but about breaking the enemy's will to fight. Every action was designed to introduce doubt, to create uncertainty in the alien strategic systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research team continued to develop more sophisticated quantum disruption technologies. They weren't just creating defensive tools, but developing an entirely new approach to technological conflict. Each breakthrough was immediately shared across the global resistance network, allowing for rapid adaptation and innovation. The Zorn had conquered hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. Each previous conquest had followed a precise pattern. Initial technological superiority would overwhelm the target species. Resistance would collapse. Integration would begin. Humanity was shattering every single one of those expectations. Communication became a weapon more powerful than any physical technology. Resistance groups around the world shared information through complex, constantly changing communication protocols. What looked like random noise to alien monitoring systems was actually a sophisticated, adaptive language of resistance. In the urban ruins of what was once Tokyo, a team of computer engineers developed a breakthrough in adaptive communication technology. They created a communication system that could change its fundamental encryption method every few milliseconds. To the Zorn, it was like trying to catch water with their hands. Military training centers around the world had transformed. Soldiers were no longer just fighters but strategic thinkers. They were taught to approach conflict with creativity, to see beyond traditional battle strategies. Every soldier was also a potential innovator, a problem solver. The global resistance had become a living, breathing organism. Each group was autonomous, yet connected through a complex network that could adapt and respond faster than any centralized command structure. The Zorn's hierarchical military system could not comprehend this level of distributed intelligence. Supreme Navigator Zeltak stared at the battle reports with increasing frustration. Their predictive algorithms were failing. Their strategic models were collapsing. Humanity was not behaving like any species they had ever encountered. They were learning too quickly, adapting too rapidly, fighting with a creativity that defied mathematical prediction. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They were discovering that humanity was anything but simple. The battle of wits had only just begun. The abandoned shipyard on the coast of Chile had become something extraordinary. What was once a collection of rusting industrial infrastructure now served as humanity's most advanced shipbuilding and modification center. Vessels cobbled together from salvaged parts, retrofitted alien technology, and human innovation stood as testaments to human adaptability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked the length of the central construction bay, her fingers tracing the outline of a newly developed spacecraft. It was nothing like traditional human or alien designs. Hybrid technologies merged seamlessly. Quantum communication arrays developed from Rodriguez's research integrated with propulsion systems reverse-engineered from captured alien ships. Commander Sarah Chen oversaw the final stages of preparation. The global resistance had reached a critical point. No longer were they simply defending. They were preparing to take the fight to the enemy. "We're not just building ships," Chen explained to her team. "We're building a new understanding of space, warfare." Each vessel was more than a weapon. It was a mobile research platform, a communication hub, a survival module that embodied humanity's newfound collaborative spirit. The first true human counteroffensive began to take shape. Small, highly mobile squadrons would penetrate Zorn-controlled star systems. Their mission was not total destruction but strategic disruption, gathering intelligence, testing alien defensive systems, creating chaos in the precise mathematical order of the Zorn fleet. Retrofitted ships used ingenious camouflage techniques. Adaptive exterior materials could shift and change, mimicking the background of space or alien vessel signatures. Communication systems developed by Rodriguez's team allowed these ships to ghost through alien defensive networks, appearing and disappearing like phantoms. In the depths of space, the first raids began. A squadron led by Captain Miguel Rodriguez, Elena's brother, demonstrated the new approach. Where previous human encounters with the Zorn fleet had been defensive, these missions were calculated, precise interventions. They would strike critical communication nodes, introduce quantum disruption fields, and vanish before the alien forces could mount a comprehensive response. The psychological impact was as important as any physical damage. The Zorn had believed themselves invincible. Now they found themselves unable to predict or prevent these human intrusions. Each successful mission chipped away at the alien fleet's sense of superiority. Research facilities around the world worked in perfect synchronization. Every piece of intelligence gathered was immediately analyzed, shared, and integrated into new strategic approaches. What worked in one star system would be rapidly adapted for use in another. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum disruption technologies reached new levels of sophistication. They developed systems that could temporarily rewrite the fundamental communication protocols of the Zorn fleet. It was more than hacking. It was a form of technological linguistic manipulation that the aliens could not comprehend. The global resistance had become a living, breathing intelligence network. Communication happened at speeds and with a complexity that the hierarchical Zorn system could not match. Each resistance group was autonomous, yet connected through an adaptive global network that could respond and reorganize faster than any centralized command structure. Captured alien technologies were not simply studied, they were transformed. Engineering teams around the world broke down alien systems, understanding their fundamental principles, and then reimagining them through a uniquely human lens of creativity and innovation. Supreme Navigator Zeltak watched the battle reports with growing concern. Their perfectly calculated invasion was unraveling. Humanity was not just resisting, they were learning, adapting, turning the very technologies of invasion against their creators. The raids expanded. What began as small, targeted interventions became a widespread campaign of strategic disruption. Human ships would appear in seemingly impossible locations, strike with precision, and vanish before a comprehensive response could be mounted. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They were discovering that humanity was anything but simple. The counteroffensive had begun. The Alpha Centauri system burned with the intensity of 1,000 battles. Massive alien warships hung against the starry backdrop, their metallic surfaces reflecting the chaos of combat. This was the Zorn Collective's primary staging point, the heart of their invasion strategy, the place they believed would be humanity's final defeat. They were wrong. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the modified research vessel, her hands dancing across holographic control interfaces. Years of research, countless sacrifices, and the collective intelligence of human resistance had culminated in this moment. The quantum communication hijack was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a complete reimagining of interstellar conflict. Commander Sarah Chen's voice cut through the tension. All units execute primary protocol. Her command spread across the human fleet, a collection of ships that defied conventional design. Some were retrofitted military vessels, others were research platforms transformed into weapons of war. Each ship told a story of human adaptation. The first phase of the attack was psychological. Sophisticated signal generators began to flood the Zorn communication networks with complex, multi-layered information patterns. To the alien systems, it appeared as random noise. In reality, it was a carefully constructed linguistic attack that would slowly unravel their entire communication infrastructure. Supreme Navigator Zeltak watched in growing horror as the first signs of system breakdown began. Alien ships started to lose synchronization. Communication protocols became garbled. The perfect mathematical precision of the Zorn fleet began to fracture. Dr. Rodriguez's breakthrough went beyond simple signal disruption. Her team had developed a way to essentially rewrite the fundamental communication protocols of the alien network. It was like introducing a completely foreign language into a complex translation system, causing total systemic collapse. The human fleet moved with a fluidity that defied traditional military doctrine. Small squadrons would dart between massive alien ships, introducing targeted quantum disruption fields. Larger vessels provided support, their adaptive technology shifting and changing to counter alien weapon systems. Captain Miguel Rodriguez led a critical squadron targeting the primary Zorn communication hub. His ships moved like living things, using adaptive camouflage and quantum signal manipulation to become virtually undetectable. Where the Zorn expected straight lines and predictable movement, human ships introduced chaos. Across the Alpha Centauri system, the battle reached a critical point. Alien ships began to turn on each other, their communication network so thoroughly compromised that they could no longer distinguish friend from foe. The perfect mathematical precision of the Zorn fleet dissolved into complete chaos. The human resistance had studied the Zorn for years. They understood that the alien species relied on absolute predictability. Their entire military and social structure was built on mathematical certainty. Humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to introduce uncertainty. Dr. Rodriguez watched as the quantum communication hijack reached its final stage. Entire sections of the Zorn fleet went dark. Communication systems collapsed. Strategic networks unraveled. What had seemed like an impenetrable alien armada began to disintegrate from within. "We're not destroying them," Dr. Rodriguez explained to her team. "We're fundamentally changing how they understand conflict." It was more than a military victory. It was a complete paradigm shift. Commander Chen's voice rang out across the communication network. "All units, prepare for final phase." The human fleet moved with a precision that belied their apparent chaos. Each ship, each squadron, worked as part of a larger living intelligence network. Supreme Navigator Zeltak could only watch as the invasion fleet, the pride of the Zorn collective, collapsed around him. Centuries of galactic conquest reduced to chaos by a species they had considered primitive. The final confrontation was not a traditional battle. It was a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to learn, to transform the very nature of conflict. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They were witnessing their complete defeat. The dust of battle had settled, but the silence was anything but peaceful. Where once the Alpha Centauri system had been a battlefield of galactic proportions, now it stood as a testament to humanity's unexpected triumph. Broken alien ships drifted like forgotten monuments, silent witnesses to a conflict that had changed everything. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the primary research vessel, her eyes reflecting the vast expanse of stars. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had not just survived an invasion, they had transformed themselves in the process. The Global Recovery Council convened in what was once the United Nations headquarters in New York. Representatives from every corner of the globe gathered, but these were not the politicians of the past. Scientists, engineers, community leaders, and strategists sat together, united by something far more profound than national boundaries. "We are no longer just inhabitants of Earth," began Secretary General Amara Diallo. "We are now a galactic species." Her words carried the weight of their recent victory, but also the immense responsibility that came with it. The technologies developed during the war had propelled human civilization centuries ahead of its previous trajectory. Quantum communication systems that could navigate the complexities of interstellar space. Adaptive technologies that could transform and respond to unprecedented challenges. Medical breakthroughs that had helped humanity survive the most critical moments of the invasion. Commander Sarah Chen presented the proposal for the Interstellar Exploration Committee. It was more than a military or scientific organization. It was a comprehensive approach to understanding and exploring the universe. Every lesson learned from the war would be applied to humanity's next great journey. Research facilities that had been established during the conflict now became centers of unprecedented innovation. The Underground Research Center in the Rocky Mountains, where Dr. Rodriguez had first developed the quantum disruption technologies, was transformed into a global think tank. Scientists from every discipline worked together, sharing knowledge with a level of collaboration never before seen. In human history, the captured alien technologies became a critical resource. But unlike previous human approaches to technological acquisition, this was not about military superiority or economic advantage. It was about understanding, about learning, about expanding human potential. Educational systems were completely redesigned. Schools were no longer just about learning existing knowledge, but about fostering the kind of adaptive thinking that had saved the species. Creativity, collaborative problem-solving, and interdisciplinary approaches became the core of human education. Space exploration programs received unprecedented support. The technologies developed during the war made interstellar travel a realistic possibility. Humanity was no longer confined to a single planet. The first colony ships were already being designed, drawing from the adaptive technologies that had proven so critical during the conflict. Dr. Rodriguez's team continued to push the boundaries of scientific understanding. The quantum communication technologies that had been crucial in defeating the Zorn were now being adapted for exploration, for communication, for understanding the fundamental nature of the universe. The story of humanity's victory became more than a historical account. It became a legend whispered in star systems across the galaxy, a testament to a species that had been underestimated, a civilization that had transformed conflict into an opportunity for growth. Commander Chen reflected on the journey. The invasion had revealed something fundamental about human nature. Their greatest strength was not in their technology, not in their military might, but in their ability to adapt, to learn, to transform challenges into opportunities. The Interstellar Exploration Committee's first mission was clear: not to conquer, not to defend, but to understand, to explore, to learn. The technologies developed during the war would be used to reach out, to communicate, to expand human knowledge. As the first exploration ships prepared for launch, Dr. Rodriguez looked out at the stars. The universe had seemed so vast, so threatening, during the invasion. Now it looked like an invitation. Humanity had come of age. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. They had awakened something extraordinary,